Hello and welcome everyone.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 3.
Just for your reference, I've placed a document in the chat box. This is our challenge blueprint that I will be covering today. So if you want to go ahead and open that, feel free to do so.
I'm going to put the link back in there because you can only see links if you were in the chat when it came out.
Oh,
so I couldn't even see that you had linked it.
Oh, I see. Thank you. I didn't know that.
For better or worse. And with this small group, you do not have to, but you are welcome to join us on camera or mic. Jump into chat with us anytime that makes sense. When we have huge groups, that's sometimes harder, but this is a small enough group, I think.
Okay, well, it's 1 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to session 3 of the Build Your Own Teen Innovation Challenge, brought to you by the Jacobs Institute for Innovation at the University of San Diego. I can just chime in based off of last week with your clean water and sanitation activity. I enjoyed looking at your Tinkercad prototypes. They were very cool, very awesome. And so I do plan on going in and responding to everyone's wonderful creation. So thank you everyone who was able to do that. And if not, hey, it's still not too late. Go ahead and post it in and we'll take a look at it as well.
I'd be curious to know how that experience went for folks.
Yeah, let's get some feedback. Did you enjoy doing that? Again, you can feel free to type it in the chat, or if you feel comfortable with, turning your mic on and sharing it with us. We'd love to hear back from you.
Okay, hi, this is Mary Beth. So
Hi.
that was rather challenging to try to use that. I mean, it was good for me to try. I'm probably one of the least technologically savvy people out there. So I'm glad I tried, but it was challenging.
Well, thank you for that feedback. Have any other thoughts? It was challenging.
I thought it was really fun to play with, and I think it's always good to do what the kids are doing so we know what they're having to deal with sometimes.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted you all to jump in and delve into that project, because it is one of our suggested activities. So it's always good when you as a teacher can experience it first before you have your students jump right in. So that's awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And if you have any more feedback along the way, feel free to type it in our chat box.
Just comment, and I think I mentioned this before. I understand the chat. I'm relatively tech savvy, but I even had my own challenges wrapping my head around the 3-dimensional. How do I get it to do what I want it to do? I could see what I wanted, but it was like manipulating was somewhat challenging. So I have this feeling that I was missing out on probably some tips and tricks that would have made it simpler, and I suspect that. You can definitely understand the benefit of creating something in a 3-dimensional space that you can then take elsewhere. So 3D print it or take it into a virtual game and I think kids in particular would get really excited about those aspects. But there's no doubt you're not alone, and it's not a tech aware challenge. I think that it's a mindset thing, and probably those who are really adept at geospatial manipulation do a better job, and those that don't. So, and I'm definitely in the latter category.
And it's kind of funny just thinking about my experience working with students. They're so tech savvy, they would probably pick up on how to do it instantly. They probably wouldn't even experience any challenges at all. They say, "Oh, this is easy, Miss Mitchell." And so I'm pretty sure some of you teachers can probably agree. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Today we want to talk about the challenge blueprint. We've gone through the curriculum, gone through the phases and activities, and so we wanted to hone in on you actually creating your own
Hi, Mom.
blueprint for your specific challenge. And so we have placed the link in the chat box. So
You like my flowers?
I would invite you to go ahead and click on the link, please, and then you can follow along. I know some of you may want to fill in some of the information as we go throughout the presentation, but either way, it's just there for your viewing so that you can follow along with us. And what you will find is that this blueprint will serve as the ultimate planning guide for your challenge. It's something that will be helpful not just for you as a teacher, but if you want to share it with other colleagues or school administrators, maybe even school board members as well. It's actually a plan that will be put in place that you can share with others. And what I want to share with you is that before you start jumping into the document, I'm going to actually go into it here, and I see all these cool little animal avatars here at the top. What you want to do is make a copy of it first. So you just go to File, click on Make a Copy, and then you can, once you click that, another document will pop up with the same information and you can rename it. And that's the one that you want to use to put your information in. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go through about a little less than half of the components today so that you can get familiar with it. As you begin to plan your Teen Innovation Challenge, it is important that you first identify your target audience. And you can do this by thinking about which students you would like to target. For example, it could be as narrow as your 8th grade class, or it could be as broad as all of the 8th grade classes in your school. And for some, it could even be all of the 8th grade classes in your school district. We actually have a school district that's interested in implementing Pactful for their 10th grade English class, and so across the district. So that is that's how they want to approach it, but ultimately the choice is up to you as the leader of this challenge. You should also think about if there's a particular subject that you would like to target. For example, it could be English or social studies or both. Or if you wanted to offer it specifically for an advanced class or an honors class, you can do that as well. Ultimately, the option is yours. It's a good idea for you to have an idea in regards to how many students and teachers you expect to participate overall. The choice is yours as to how big or small you want your challenge to be, but you definitely want to consider if this is an event that you want to be specifically limited to the students and teachers at your school, or if you want it to be an open event. So other teachers, let's say you have a friend that teaches at a school nearby who might be interested. It could be a challenge that you collaborate with another educator on. So it could be as broad or narrow as you want. Are there any questions or comments about that?
I'm curious if the people that are here have any idea who their target audience is yet.
Not yet. Okay, some, perhaps you're still trying to figure it out. Oh, high school science. Wonderful. We know the school year is gearing up for you, so you have a lot to think about. Oh, yeah, we have a homeschool group as well. That's awesome. Wonderful. Next, I want to talk about the actual implementation of your challenge. Now, most of you will be remote this fall, and so having a virtual challenge is given. And so you have to think about how will you execute this successfully? What challenges might you encounter? Do your students have the devices and connectivity that is needed to access the virtual curriculum? And so just keeping these in mind, if the answer is you're unsure, then I would start with trying to figure out ways that you can work around these challenges so that you can have a successful plan. Also, you should think about how will you ensure that all of your students have Gmail accounts if they don't already. Do you need to acquire any special permission from parents, or is this covered in your school's technology permission guidelines that are filled out at the beginning of the school year? And if it's already covered, you should think about how you will notify your parents about this project. And if you're unsure about that, just checking with your school principal, they would be able to help you with that. I think that the key thing is, if you are a teacher, it's important to communicate with your school administrator first as to what you're doing, and then what's the best plan with moving forward to make sure that everyone has access. And then finally, we've talked a little bit about this before, but I just want to bring it up because it is very important for you to think about which SDG, like if you want to implement a challenge where you as the teacher are deciding which SDG the students will be focusing on, or if that is something that you want your students to choose freely on their own. As you see here, we say that Packful has a lot of autonomy for the students, but it also has a lot of autonomy for the teachers or the educators who are implementing challenges as well, because every situation, every school, every classroom is different. All right, so then you would, the next area that you want to think about is your event timeline. And that starts with, hey, when do you want this challenge to begin? Now, it's probably best if you try avoiding starting your challenge around the time that other major school events are starting. Like as the school is beginning, the school year begins, you may want to allow for a couple of weeks to get settled in before you introduce something new like this. Or if there's just another conflicting event, I would just say just be strategic around coordinating that. But once you decide when you are ready to begin your challenge, it's good to consider how long it will take your students and other participating teachers to matriculate through the curriculum. So how long will it take them to complete the first phase and then the second phase? And think about the frequency and length of time that you meet with your students, because that definitely has to be factored in. You can definitely move faster if you are meeting with your students virtually every day. But if you are only meeting a certain class twice a week, it may take a little longer to get through the content. And then also think about if your school has days off, how will that affect your timing as well? So just a lot to think about, but just following your school's academic calendar would be a helpful guide to start.
Given that we did our challenge event last spring and we heard from a lot of teachers, do we have recommendations about a minimum time period for a full experience with students, or a recommendation that we might offer?
I'd say, well, for our spring Changemaker challenge, we started mid-January and culminated like the beginning of June. So about 4 to 5 months, maybe 5 months is a solid date. I mean, not date, but a solid length of time to think about for your challenge. So 5 months, perhaps 6, just depending upon, again, just how often and frequently, you're meeting with your students.
Yeah, and just one comment on that. There's a lot of flexibility here, and we have had educators who are adapting it to their own needs and schedules. So while you could condense a challenge into something as small as a month, I think you could also make it even a whole year long. I think that was our we found that sort of sweet spot. And I would just offer too, we ended up taking it into June, but that was actually in part because of a COVID delay. So our original intention was really around sort of 3.5 months of students' work, somewhere in that time frame. So you can flex that in a lot of different ways, but it really ultimately, as Alina said, I think it makes a difference as to how frequently you're meeting, when students are able to work together on it, and the scaffolding and support that is required in your curriculum or community. So lots of different options.
Absolutely. And because COVID is COVID-19 is a situation that we are currently dealing with, even that can have some unforeseeable delays as well. And so I think the key thing is just to be flexible, just be flexible, and just do your best. And we are here to support if, you run into any challenges that maybe you can't quite figure out what would be the best way to maneuver through it. That's what we are here for, to help you. And you definitely want to think about your estimated time as to when you want your challenge to end. Keep in mind that there will be a culminating pitch event. And so again, avoiding any major school events around this time is key. I am curious to know, when are you thinking about launching your challenge event? And so I have a poll that I want to share with you. Okay, and this is just thinking about in terms of, if you're thinking about launching a fall challenge, winter, spring, just estimate. I guess I could have put a don't know yet, but just choose the one that you think might be best for you. And of course, you're not locked in stone to anything. Okay. Some people are still filling it out. Okay, so now let me just share the results. So it looks like, okay, a few of you guys are looking at doing it for the fall, September through November, but some winter and spring. Perfect, thank you for that. That's helpful for us to know, to kind of gauge. All right. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about the area of educator support and training, and there's a couple of links that I want us to view. So it is important, if you want to invite other educators to be involved in this challenge, it's important for you to think about how will you train them on using Pactful, and how much time will you need to do so. So that's even prior to your challenge beginning. We would like to share with you a resource that you might find to be very helpful. We have a Pactful YouTube channel, so I'm gonna go to that really quickly. Go back. All right, here we go. We have a Pactful YouTube channel that has a lot of helpful teacher videos that walks you through overall conceptually what is Pactful. So we have an information session on demand. We have a walk through the phases and different activities. And even if you want to see what the support looks like through an actual challenge, we have our Spring Changemaker Challenge videos accessible to you. And so you may find that following these could be helpful for you as you guide your teachers and your parents or even students through the challenges themselves.
And one comment on that before you leave, Alina, if you go to the playlist link at the top, they are organized a little bit to kind of help you find specific content that might support different things. So like our teacher camp stuff is all in one playlist. But the Changemaker Challenge works that we did before is also in one. So it's a little bit, so you're not necessarily just clicking on you're welcome to click on everything, but there's also a little bit of organization in case it helps.
Thank you. Yes, that's very important. Okay, and then also, I mentioned before, like if you wanted your event to be open or closed, as I said, it could be open to other teachers at your school, but it could also be, teachers from other schools across the state. And some of you might, be brave enough to tackle on an international challenge. But what I wanted to show you here is a forum that was created specifically for you. Let's say you wanted other educators across other states or other countries to participate in your specific challenge. You can post your information here. And so we are asking that you share the focus of your event. I guess that's specifically for the SDGs, your approach, the timeline for your event, any criteria, and how they should sign up or get more information. And so if you feel like you want to share it here, please do so. Also, last but not least, if you have any, well, everyone will have specific challenge benchmarks, especially on your event timeline, but it's important to think about who will be the person that is overseeing everything, making sure that the phases are being completed, all of your benchmarks are being met. Now, most likely it will be you, the organizer of the challenge, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And we mentioned before, we did a Jacobs Institute Changemaker Challenge. And I wanted to share with you the website here, packful.org, JICC, and I'm going to go to it just because it's an excellent guide for you. It's an excellent guide to you because it includes a lot of the components that were that are a part of your blueprint challenge. I'm getting tongue twisted here. Your blueprint challenge. There we go. And so if you scroll down, you can see just some overall general information. And this would be a good way. Let's say you are launching your school website or putting a page up. Having a setup like this would be helpful. We have information on our prizes, eligibility, the timeline. So just some other helpful information, an example of a flyer that you could model. But it's just important for you to have a key place where all of the information can be accessed by your students or other educators to follow, and your parents as well, because we know parents will be doing a lot of the support for your children's work. Okay. At this time, are there any questions, comments, as you are looking through your challenge blueprint now? Are there any questions that you may have on anything?
Did you say you're going to be doing a challenge in the spring as well this year, or no?
We are, well, I'll let Lisa take on that question, but yes, we will be.
Yes, we are. We're going to do a repeat on the Jacobs Changemaker Challenge in the spring, and we're also considering launching a different type of challenge event this fall, actually. We're still formulating what that is, but we're talking about a global teen innovation challenge this fall.
Okay. And are you going to send out information, or how are you advertising?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've had anything to do with us up to this point, you'll definitely be getting a notification in case you want to join that challenge event in either the fall or spring and participate in that. So you're definitely welcome to do that. We felt like for the teachers participating this summer that even if they were running their own challenge event in their classroom or their school, it's just another layer or level that participation where the students feel like they can do something at a larger level.
Yeah, that sounds great.
In fairness, just full disclosure with this group too, part of our thinking is we also want to be in a position where we're helping support your challenges and advertise for them. And so we want to find the sweet spot of, encouraging we're going through this effort together. We want to help you build the blueprint for your own challenge in your classroom or community. And then maybe there's a method that we can leverage that work into a greater challenge. And I will say this happened even with our challenge before. We invited, educators across the globe to participate. In every case, though, we also were asking, and they did this, and we were asking educators to essentially host and run their own classroom-based decisions at the end, so that the teachers could then elevate the one team. We actually ultimately expanded that to be 3, but elevate the one team that was the winningest team from their classroom challenge. So there's a couple ways that could be done, but in the pitch phase within Packful 2, we also have the words escaping me. The criteria, the rubric for how to run a pitch event and how to evaluate. And so we were already kind of expecting, and this did happen, we were already expecting that the educators would have had a pitch event in their classrooms in some way, and having the students involved in providing feedback on other student teams' work too. So I think there's an opportunity for all of those things to potentially align, but that's partly why we created the event category too. We definitely want to be in a position where we can help market and support your events, and help you along that path. So think about those ways, and if there are things that come up in your mind like that you would need support in certain ways, that's what we're here for too. So we want to help you be successful in your challenge events over the next year, 2, 5, whatever.
Are there any other questions? Okay, I want to make sure that let me go back actually. I didn't, here we go. Here we go. I want to make sure that I cover your weekly challenge activity because that's important to know. This week, it's important for you to post your challenge blueprint components, which will include everything that we discussed today, which will be the target audience, challenge implementation, event timeline, and educator support and training. By next Tuesday, post it into the community, and then respond to 2 classmates by the next session, which is next Thursday. And you could screenshot it or link it, however you feel comfortable with doing that in the community.
And I think it's fine if it's a draft. We're just encouraging you to get your ideas down, knowing that things can always iterate and change.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we took us quite a while to figure out exactly all the scaffolding and timing and all of these things too. So part of that is giving you an opportunity to start thinking that way, and then we can, not just us, but each other can help each other learn ways that you're thinking about it or things you might need. So.
Are there any questions or comments, or are you feeling nervous about anything? Are you foreseeing some challenges? Talk to us.
I have a question for everybody. We have one session left next week where we'll finish covering the rest of the blueprint. But I'm wondering, given that we have one session left live with you, is there anything in particular that you would like us to cover other than those remaining components of the blueprint? Pieces of the process that you may need more support on or don't quite understand, or something that you haven't gotten that you hope you would get?
Well, this is Mary Beth, and I'm thinking just with the starting classes virtually, we won't get to know each other quite as well as we might as if we were all together in the same room. I'm just kind of stymied, I think, at that point, like, oh, okay, making groups and just how to do it, like beginning virtually. When we finished the school year last year, we already knew each other because we had been in class up until March together. So it felt like we were already a community when we went online. So I guess starting new classes and then introducing this and trying to formulate the groups just seems a little more challenging to me to think about it all virtually.
I have a couple of suggestions for you, Mary Beth. One would be not to start it right away, obviously the first week of school. Give the kids a little bit of time to get to know each other and form relationships. The second would be to solicit their ideas of which global goal they're interested in. You could do it in a community spreadsheet or a survey, or specific problems that they're interested in solving. That's how I did it when I taught it. I had a class of college students, but it's the same process. And so just trying to understand, because some people don't have any idea of what they want to work on, and then others are very passionate. And when the passionate ones, or the ones that do have a, a solid idea, share that idea, then others can join the team. And so that's how the teams kind of formed organically, through me facilitating those conversations, whether you do it through spreadsheets or surveys or in real time, but forming it around the problem or the global goal, and seeing who's really passionate about which one. And then sometimes they end up being the leader that'll the rest of the crew will follow. I don't know if that helps, but that's how it played out organically for me.
Getting my brain around.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Yeah.
And Michelle, I think your comment is spot on. I would offer, both Lisa and I have a long background in virtual education as well. And I would say, if you think about it in terms of, and I know everyone's a little different in what's going on, but I think there's going to be a virtual component, maybe exclusively for everyone. And if you think about it when it does become time, which is think about it doing it virtually first, and kind of encouraging the students, giving them a forum to figure out their team process, but then encourage them to actually do their work sort of virtually, and kind of navigate those elements too. If they're doing that in the context of creating something as a team, it's actually an opportunity for them to get better at sort of virtual teaming a little bit. And they are actually maybe better at it already anyway in some cases, but giving them that kind of opportunity to that whole student choice and selection. And at the end of the day, that's really the kind of thing that we're supporting. And I think this Pac-12 in particular can lend itself to that, because they can do sort of the educational components asynchronously by themselves if they want through the platform, but then they can do their teamwork elements, a little bit of combination of asynchronously, where they might collaborate on a Google document, one of the activities in the curriculum. And then there may be times, and there probably will definitely be times, when they should do some things, have some discussions, synchronously. So it may be sort of a different model as you think about that, where you might have an opportunity, give them a little bit of time, and then you may be in a position where you could do breakout rooms in Zoom or something, or support them coming together on their own to kind of do that collaboration. It's definitely a twist on sort of maybe how it's always been thought of in the past.
And don't be surprised if you'll get your groups formed. They'll have an initial goal or problem they want to tackle. And as they work through, sometimes people end up wanting to switch groups. They like what the other team's doing, or they decided to change their problem they're focusing on. I rolled with that. I let it happen. As long as the team met the outcome, I was okay with it. So just a heads up that phenomenon can and does happen as people are working on their projects. I'd never forced people into teams or forced them to stay with the problem that the team was no longer interested in.
Jill, I think there's a number of, I don't know that it's fundamentally, we've offered some in the curriculum, and if you run across other suggestions or ideas that we think we should bake into the curriculum, we've got some tech tools and suggestions as you go through the activities that they're, could consider using. Tinkercad was one example that you kind of went through this last week, but there's lots of them. And honestly, I think it really depends on what the student teams are doing. So we saw students working on stuff this last spring where even when they had started in the physical classroom, they ended not in the physical classroom, but they started and they were doing things, creating their own Twitter campaigns to get the word out and try to get people involved and support them. And I think they're naturally, inclined to think about things in a social, digital world too. So I don't know that there's any one tool or anything. Frankly, the use of Google Docs becomes sort of, because we require it for the evidence part of the platform, that becomes a common denominator where they can collaborate on a Google Doc or a spreadsheet or a slide deck or whatever they want to do to kind of get their thoughts together. And then there's going to be lots of different scenarios where there may be other tools that are appropriate for their specific problem that may be unique to them. And in the end, I would say certainly if you're thinking about it as you were, some of what would have originally been considered to be in-classroom pitches to each other became virtual ones. And we ultimately asked them to just record them and send them to us for our consideration. You could still do that in a number of different ways. And I think the recording gave them an opportunity to kind of, and I know teachers would work with them a little bit as they were like, okay, you're gonna submit this, do it once, let's talk about the recording, what could you do to make improvements? It became another opportunity for them to learn something a little different. And ultimately they all submitted video pitches that I think we were certainly very proud of them. And I think, but ultimately we got a lot of great feedback from educators that they were very proud to have something too. And then that gives them yet another piece of evidence that they can show and share with others. So I don't think there's any one single Padlet, Flipgrid. There's a gazillion things. It'll really depend on what works best for your students. I would think that something like a Padlet could be a great opportunity for that. As Lisa mentioned, the digital spreadsheet finding groups, something like a Padlet could be really great for that too, where they could kind of punch it in there and then join up or find.
I mean, Flipgrid could too. I mean, I could see you doing a video
absolutely.
asking students, is there a problem or global goal that appeals to you, and letting each student respond on video, just to see visually. I think that could be a really interesting activity. Lots of ways to play with that. We were surprised when we got at the end. Okay, so we switched to, we were going to do a live pitch, and then we had to take virtual recorded pitches because of COVID. I had anticipated seeing students on video. None of them submitted that way. They all screencasted their slideshow. So they had a slide presentation, their pitch, and then they did voiceovers. And that was what we got submitted.
We had a couple that were basically recorded Zoom sessions where
right, we did.
They had done the pitch either by themselves or in front of their teacher or something, and the teacher recorded it, and that became the packaged pitch that they submitted to us. But a lot of them also, to Lisa's point, used like something like Screencastify or something and overlaid their voice elements. And, you know, it's just totally up to them. And we even saw, you know, and encouraged from our perspective, you know, some teachers certainly had, I think, a plan where every student needed to sort of participate in the pitch and speak. Others recognized that depending on the group and the team, some students in certain groups were better at certain elements along the way and maybe weren't the best person to do or didn't feel comfortable presenting. You can kind of go that in a bunch of different ways from an educational perspective, but the opportunity is there to think, you know, about how it could be done a little differently.
Any other thoughts or questions? Okay, well, if not, then thank you so much for joining our session today. Again, if you have any questions, you could either reach out to us directly, or you can post in the Packful community. And we look forward to seeing your plans come to life.
Yeah, and if you can think of anything else that you might want us to cover in next week's session, please just send us an email and we'll be sure to address it next time we meet.
Wonderful.
Thank
All right.
you all so much.
Thank
It's
you.
great to work with you and collaborate, so thank you.
Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.